Welcome to Future Talk. On today's program, we're going to look at the Tech Museum. Located in the heart of Silicon Valley in San Jose, California, the Tech Museum tries to capture the spirit of Silicon Valley. It's filled with exhibits that seek to inspire people of all ages to learn about science and to use that knowledge to make the world a better place. A bit later, we'll have some videos from the Tech, but now I'd like to introduce my special guest, Bridget Rigby. Bridget has a degree in the history and philosophy of science and mathematics from Stanford University. She spent 4 years leading technology-based after-school learning centers, and she spent 6 years with Tech Museum summer camps and Galileo camps where children are taught to think like innovators. She currently serves as Director of Learning at the Tech Museum. Bridget, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Marty. I'm happy to be here.
You have a very interesting title, Director of Learning. What exactly does that mean?
Well, at the Tech Museum, we focus on learning for both kids and grown-ups, so that means I really get to have my hands in almost every aspect of the museum. So on the exhibit development side, I work with the content team and get to help define the learning outcomes of all of our exhibits as we develop them. I also get to have my hands in our year-round educational programs for kids. So these start with the school year experience where kids come in with their teachers, our after-school programs. We go into summer camps and our annual design challenge competition, the Tech Challenge.
Now, what's the Tech Challenge all about? That's a contest for kids?
It's a design challenge competition that happens once a year where we have kids focus on solving a real-world problem. So this past year, we just had this in April, we focused on we called it Trash Island, the Great Pacific Gyre. So there's this mass of plastic bits floating in the ocean that's harming sea life out in the Pacific. And we wanted kids to really start to look at this problem and see that they could help find a solution. So we created this Tech Challenge rig that represented the actual ocean, and then kids designed basically engineering contraptions. They went through the entire design challenge approach where they designed, they built, they tested, they prototyped, they got feedback until their designs were ready for the big day where all of these kids came into the Tech, filled it up. It was just a day of design revelry, and they took their contraptions and put it up against the rig.
I think we have a couple of pictures of kids being in a state of revelry, if you will. Do we have those pictures? There's one right there. He looks like he's having a good time.
Yeah, so these kids are in their revelry during actually at the museum in their school year labs and summer camp programs, and I think we'll also have some pictures of the actual challenge day in a little bit.
Now, do the kids put in a lot of commitment to this? Does this require a lot of time on their part?
For the Tech Challenge, yes. So these teams are serious about the design process. They come in, there's a group of up to 6 kids, and they have an advisor that works with them over a many-month period. So we have our challenge at the end of April. It is kicked off at the beginning of October. So in the fall, they can start designing towards their solution. Typically, the teams kind of come together. They start designing at least over a couple-month period, and it's really up to each team. They meet weekly. It's up to how they want to handle it.
Now, do you have any kind of science of learning? Do you have an approach that maybe you wouldn't find so much in a public school classroom? I mean, is this part of what the Tech offers, that you have a method of teaching that people absorb very easily?
Yes, we have a very unique approach to learning that is both playful and profound. The kids get to come up with their own unique solutions to science and engineering challenges that we present. So like the challenge at the Great Pacific Gyre, the Tech Challenge, or in our school year labs, for example, we have one fabulous lab that's very popular called Mind Over Machine, where the kids get to design and build their own roller coaster contraptions. And they get to get very creative, very innovative. We give them a defined goal. We say, the lab instructor may say, the goal is to get this marble in the cup. So they get a marble, a cup, they get long insulation tubing cut in half that can be the pathway, and that they can twist and turn however they want, and they get a set of Tinker Toys, some masking tape, and then they go crazy. We give them some time constraints, and they just get in there, they build, they test, they find out what works, and they find out what doesn't work. And along the way, they're really discovering the laws of physics. They're learning about potential and kinetic energy, and they're really getting an intuitive sense of the mathematics at play.
Do you start with kids who are already science-oriented, or do you start with kids who maybe don't have that background and they're really starting from nothing and you're introducing them into a whole new world that they hadn't been involved in before?
You know, both. We have kids that come to our school year labs, so with their teacher they come on a field trip. Many that never have gotten to engage in any sort of science design challenge like this. These days, science is not getting the funding in schools that it once got, so a lot of these kids don't even get to do science in school. And throughout the school year, we have about, I think it's about 1,200 labs, different classrooms that come in, and 60% of those are Title I students. So they get to all come to our labs for free, and we have, really on either end of the spectrum, we also have the kids that are really, really, really into science and who love it and whose parents are engineers and design and tinker with them all the time in the garage.
Oh, sounds great.
Yeah.
Now we're going to go on to the first video from the Tech Museum. We're going to have an interview with the Vice President of Content Development at the Tech, Alana Connor. So let's go ahead and roll that tape. The Tech Museum moved into its current building in 1998, largely funded by Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. It's a multi-level structure filled with scientific exhibits, many of them aimed at young people. Many of the exhibits are participatory, like this simulation of a spacesuit used by astronauts outside the space vehicle. There's also a model of a strand of DNA made entirely of books, and this is where we conducted our interviews. Alana Connor is Vice President of Content Development at the Tech. I asked her about the criteria for selecting new exhibits.
We actually have a lot of criteria. It's the mark is pretty high for being an exhibit at the Tech Museum. So first of all, it does have to have considerable educational quality, meeting the needs not only of our usual visitors who are usually California students in grades 3 through 12, but also their parents and their grandparents and their friends from out of state and their friends who don't necessarily speak English. So looking at standard science and technology education as well as appeal to diverse audiences, while capturing, what we do uniquely as a museum is capturing the spirit of Silicon Valley, and that is inspiring people to think about the problems in their world and how they can apply science to solving them.
So you're looking for some kind of practical results. You want to inspire kids to go out and become scientists and solve the world's problems?
If we can inspire some of our visitors to become scientists, that's great. But more broadly, we want people to be scientifically and technologically literate, that they can make good decisions when they grow up to be voters or even in their decisions about consuming technology and science now. So I really see this as the center of public intellectual life in Silicon Valley, in a place where anyone can come and get a good background in science and technology.
Now, where do you get most of the ideas for the content? Do you or your staff come up with them yourselves, or do people from outside suggest them? Where do the ideas come from?
Well, true to the spirit of Silicon Valley, we're kind of an open source platform. We have a lot of different sources for exhibit and education ideas. We do have a very talented team that we dream up some of them, but we have close partnerships with local corporations as well, where we harness their brains to our designs and get their input and indeed their ideas. We also have an open source platform on the internet for soliciting ideas for exhibits and educational programming from the whole world. This is called the Tech Virtual, and it's a place where people can go to contribute ideas, to respond to requests that we put up and other museums put up, as well as for museum professionals to swap ideas amongst within the industry.
Well, I think you have some permanent exhibits here that are here all the time, and then you also have some special exhibits for a limited time. What are some of your more interesting special exhibits?
So I can take no credit for special exhibits. That is in our marketing department under a wonderful woman named Elizabeth Williams. But recently we had Body World's Vital, which was the plastinated bodies show looking at health and sickness and ways to keep a healthy body. Prior to that, we had a large exhibition on Genghis Khan, who spread technology and innovation throughout Asia during his conquests.
I was not aware that Genghis Khan was associated with technology. How was he associated with that?
Oh, well, first of all, just as when you conquer continents, you take with you all the innovations you meet along the way. So just as a disseminator of technology, but also a creator of certain combat technologies.
Now, I understand that a lot of your exhibits are also interactive. You don't just look at them, but you participate, you do stuff. Can you give an example of one of your more interesting interactive exhibits?
Sure. In fact, that is sort of, this isn't an artifact museum per se. We don't just have collections and say, you know, this is a skeleton of a dinosaur. We really want people to learn with their entire bodies, to have visceral experiences that really burn into their brains these different scientific and technological concepts. So actually behind us here is one of my favorite interactive exhibits, which is our visitors come in and you get a petri dish and you put bacteria in it. It already has bacteria. You add jellyfish DNA, and the bacteria and jellyfish DNA combine so that a day later our visitors can log into a website and see that they've grown glow-in-the-dark bacteria, because the jellyfish DNA glows in the dark, and it's this very beautiful exhibit that demonstrates not only kind of bench practices, but also this is the very process or similar process that we use to make insulin for humans.
Now, I understand that the Tech also gives awards. You have something called the Tech Awards for scientific accomplishment. What kind of people win these Tech Awards?
Oh, so our Tech Awards program is actually what I first knew about the Tech Museum. This is a program that awards people who are using science and technology to solve real-world problems, often problems of poorer countries. So, for example, an exhibit in our Tech Awards gallery shows how these social entrepreneurs use plastic meshing to capture the water in mist and fog. This is in a drought-stricken place, and this meshing will capture the moisture and then channel it for human use.
I understand that you also have a contest for kids, the Tech Challenge.
That's right,
What's that about?
So it's funny, you know, we think of the Tech Challenge sort of as the Tech Awards junior division. Every year we invite teams of students in grades 5 through 12 to develop inventions to fight a real-world problem. So we just had the Tech Challenge event 2 weeks ago, and the problem was the Pacific garbage gyre, which is a swirling mass of plastic in the North Pacific, and this mass is the size of Texas. And so the kids were challenged to create a device that could separate plastic out of water without disturbing sea life.
Did anybody come up with anything workable? These are kids now.
Yes. And so this is a great question, because many problems in the real world are much more complicated than we could represent in a challenge like this. In this particular case, the Pacific gyre is actually microscopic bits of plastic that are about a foot below the surface of the sea.
It's not like a huge visible dump you can see from outer space.
Yeah, no, and then in fact that's what's interesting to me about this problem. It's a problem that technology created, but that technology can't really perceive, at least not. You actually have to go there with big nets and scoop up the water and be like, oh, this is full of plastic confetti. So in the Tech Challenge proper, the kinds of devices, we're really trying to emphasize not only basic mechanical engineering, but also teamwork and the scientific process and the engineering process. The Tech Museum is a really special place. I've been here for a year, and I'm looking forward to many more years of producing a world-class science and technology museum that really empowers people to use science and use their own minds to make the world a better place.
So that was my interview with Alana Connor, the Vice President of Content Development at the Tech. Now, she spoke a bit about the Tech Challenge, and this is one of the Tech's big projects because it involves kids and gets them active. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more. In fact, we have some pictures of kids who have been involved in the Tech Challenge, and we're going to show those pictures and discuss them a little bit. So could we see the first picture of the Tech Challenge, please? Okay, so what are we looking at right here?
Okay, so this is a team of high school girls that entered the challenge. They call themselves the Gyre-Raffs, which is very cute and clever. So in addition to the creative contraption that the girls designed, they also get into the costumes and come up with really fun names. like any good design challenge, sometimes the solution comes in the final moments, and these girls, right before they go up the test to the rig, had a challenge, so they're kind of problem solving that. I think there were a couple other giraffes as well that they kind of got together, but their device performed just beautifully in the end. So.
Okay, let's see the next picture, please.
So this team, the Trash Junkies, just had so much design enthusiasm. They had one of the most sophisticated and complex designs of any other team. Some of the kids and teams came up with very simple solutions to this particular challenge, and they went all the way. They said, we're not just going for the low points and a couple of plastic bottles. We're going to go for the bottle caps. We're going to have this protruding arm that comes out and captures things. So you can see they have something that slides out. They have ball mechanism that drops out to trigger the next step in the chain reaction. This one was one of the most spectacular ones to watch. In fact, they actually won an award for our most spectacular failure, which at the Tech we want to definitely celebrate that risk-taking, that mindset of the Silicon Valley innovator that says, I'm going to go for it. And sometimes it doesn't work. That's part of the design process.
And failure is just one step on the road to success, right?
It is very true. So we want to recognize them for that.
Okay, and I think we have one more picture. Do we have one more picture? Yes. There it is.
This just gives you a shot of the actual rig. As Alana was describing, we try to capture this real-world problem in some sort of simulated rig. So you can kind of see the kelp and the sea life that the kids have to design around, and some plastic bottles in there. So this is another creative solution the kids came up with, and that's one of my favorite parts about design challenge learning. When the kids start out the problem, looking at the problem, one solution is not even clear, but as they go and they figure out all these different ways to solve it, once they come up with a great solution, the day of the challenge, they get to see how everybody else approached the problem differently, and the infinite number of solutions that there was to this challenge. So you can really see that through
So they're really working on their methodology, not just the final result, but learning how to collaborate, learning how to leverage their knowledge, learning how to utilize their resources for maximum effect, which are habits that will stand them in pretty good stead when they get older.
Definitely, and we believe these are the habits of mind that make Silicon Valley so unique and so successful. And when we think of our position within Silicon Valley as the Tech Museum, we want to inspire that. We want to teach kids those habits of mind. And in the Tech Challenge, especially, we recognize not only how their contraption performs on the day of the event, but they also have to present their design journal to the judges. So they capture all of the problems that they hit along the way. They talk about how they solved those problems. They really talk about how they each contributed to the solution to make sure that it was a true collaboration.
Well, it sounds like a lot of fun and pretty productive too.
Yes.
Now we're going to go on to our second video. Running an institution like the Tech Museum isn't cheap, and the Tech relies heavily on donations. And I was curious about how that really worked, so I spoke to Fletcher, who is the Director of Individual Giving at the Tech. Let's go ahead and roll that tape. When you try to get people to contribute money, and we're not pitching for money here, but what are the points that you consider most important that would make people most interested in contributing?
Well, I think that's a great question, and I think that it depends on the individual that you're dealing with, what your answer is. I think there are some individuals that support the Tech Museum that are really doing it because they believe that science, technology, engineering, and mathematics is one of, the whole STEM aspect of education is one of the most unfortunate losers, if you will, in the education budget issue we're having, especially here in California, and that out of the classroom, second classroom opportunities like the Tech Museum's labs and the Tech Museum's free field trips are picking up the slack in that category. So a lot of folks that donate to the Tech Museum and that support us do it around education, motivated initiatives. So.
Does most of your funding come from a few big donors, or Are you looking for individuals to contribute $100, $200?
That's a great question, actually. And as a relatively new staff member, I've been with the Tech Museum for about 6 months. I've actually recently done a lot of research on what I call the pyramid of giving look like here at the Tech Museum. And at this point, and for some time now, we've had some pretty significant major donors that make all the difference in the world in terms of our budget. What I want to see happen is I want to see a whole new level of membership and donors joining the Tech. The levels you're talking about, anywhere from $100 to $2,500 to $5,000. Those are the folks I feel like. A, there are plenty of them out there, and B, if they're not giving, it's because we haven't had an opportunity to reach them yet. And one of the goals that I have around expanding that base is to really reach out to the new entrepreneurs, this new generation of people that are the innovators of 2011, that are the innovators for the next 10 years. This institution was really was founded and dreamt of by the innovators of the late 80s and early 90s. And
when the Tech was founded, companies like Intel and HP
That's right.
were the leading companies.
That's right.
Now it's Google and Facebook.
Right.
So are you able to get them on board?
Yeah, in fact, we just, in a renovation of our Silicon Valley Innovation Gallery, we just partnered with Google, and if you visit that gallery, you'll see an exhibit called You Are Everywhere, which it highlights Google Earth. And you're surrounded by screens in there that allow you to almost feel like you're flying. You put in an address or a place in the world and it takes you there. And I have actually gotten nauseous. It's so realistic. But I mean, absolutely. So, Facebook, Zynga, VMware, these are all companies that are part of this next generation of technology. And, we certainly want the concepts behind what they're doing reflected in the museum. But beyond that, we want the individuals behind the innovation and the entrepreneurship to feel a connection to this institution. So.
And if you give a certain amount, I imagine you get a little plaque on the wall. There's a section of plaques.
That's right. We have our Hands of Innovation wall is for our biggest donors, and those donors come in and actually we take their handprints in a wafer of silicon, and those plaques go on the wall with their names, and then all of our donors at the $1,000 and above level have their names on the wall. That is just right next to the one with the Hands of Innovations. Yeah.
Do you have any benchmarks for measuring whether you're being successful or not, aside from keeping the doors open?
When it comes to fundraising, you mean?
If the museum is fulfilling its purpose of playing an important social role, encouraging education, how do you know if that's working?
It's another very, very good question, and certainly a question that you might imagine funders ask me all the time, right? Where are your measurable objectives? You say you want to inspire the innovator in everyone, how do you know that? So there are a few things that give us indication of how close we are in that. And one is that we do survey our visitors and our guests, and we do ask them questions about, when it comes to X subject, do you feel like you walked away from here knowing more? Are you more comfortable with that topic? Do you think you'll pay more attention in school to that topic because of what you learned is, so important behind the learning in this, in science or in math? The other thing is that a lot of times with our free field trips, after a visit here, the students and the teacher will write to us. And we collect all of those letters and specifically what they say about what meant a lot to them or why this trip inspired them to do something differently. And it's often the teachers' letters that get me that are very inspiring, and they appreciate having this outside tool, to supplement what they can't do in the classroom.
That was my interview with Fletcher, who is the Director of Individual Giving at the Tech Museum. Now, Bridget, we've been sitting here with these plastic objects on the table throughout the show. What exactly are they, and who put them together?
Well, these are some of the latest design challenges that the kids put together today, actually on the floor of our museum. It's our latest floor program called Got Bots, and you'll have to picture R2-D2 over here. We have an amazing robot from NASA. We have almost any robot you can remember from history in our robot archive. And then we give the kids a chance to design and build their own robots. So we give them all of these different parts. They get to tinker around, figure out how the motors work, how their wheels and axles are going to go, learn some fun science along the way, how the torque works, and then they get to put everything together into whatever they want to dream up, really. And we have some designs here, some designs in process, some with multiple heads, and they really all move in their own unique ways.
They all look like dinosaurs. Is that intentional? Or?
You know, that's a theme of this particular robot building system. And the kids love it because the jaws open up. So that's a very fun way to see some motors in action.
So what are your really long-term goals at the Tech? What are you really trying to accomplish long-term? Do you have some vision which is ultimately driving you?
Yes, so through something as simple as this short design challenge, the kids come in, engage in just a matter of minutes they might spend on this, to our school year labs where they engage for 90 minutes in this guided design challenge, to our summer camp programs where they're there for a week long working on these huge projects, to even the Tech Challenge where they're working for months. They really through this process get a chance to see the power of how design thinking can help them turn their ideas into reality, and they see themselves as problem solvers in this world. So these are the kids that grow up and don't just look at the world happening to them, but they look at how they can go and create and design a world that they are going to be happy to live in.
Do you look to identify kids who might be particularly good at innovating? What are the characteristics you look for to determine if a child really has what it takes to become a serious contributor?
It's a really interesting question, because it turns out, Marty, that we are all serious contributors in the innovation game. And it's a common myth to see, here is this scientific mathematical genius, how did they ever come up with that idea? Or that engineer, they must have just dreamed that up one day in their sleep and then they went out and built it. But the truth is that those people that are engaging in the creative and innovative endeavors, they go through a design process that any of us can go through. They also, when they pick up all these parts, have no idea what their solution is going to look like, but they have that creative confidence to take a step before they know exactly where it's going to lead, to tinker, to have some things fall apart, and to, at that moment, not get frustrated where they want to abandon the whole project, but really identify that they have perspective in that moment they didn't have when they started. And that's where they collaborate, that's where they brainstorm, that's where they are open to other people's ideas, and that's where the innovation happens. It's a really collaborative process, and we all can be a part of it.
Great, sounds great. I'd love to ask you more questions, but we're just about out of time, so we're going to have to wrap the show. I've been speaking with Bridget Rigby, Director of Learning at the Tech. I also spoke on location to Alana Connor and Kama Fletcher. Thanks to all of them. And thank you for watching. Be sure to tune in next time. Visit our website, www.futuretalk.net. See you next time.